You're in South Carolina, I should mention, for a town hall for former Vice President Joe Biden. You know, while you've been following him, I'm curious, have you asked voters about the gaffes that people keep mentioning over and over again? I'm curious what they may have told you.
Absolutely. We have been asking voters at various events that we've been following Biden at throughout the course of his South Carolina swing about these gaffes. Do they matter? Do they cause them to kind of reevaluate his campaign? And almost every voter that we've talked to here has said no, that doesn't make a difference, that it all actually makes him a little more human. I talked to one voter yesterday who said that, you know, Biden was born with a foot in his mouth, and it's not that surprising that he's continuing to make these gaffes. It's kind of who he is. I talked to another voter today who said that he isn't even thinking about supporting another candidate. He's focused on Joe Biden. I asked about the gaffes, and he said, well, I make a lot of gaffes as well. It makes him more relatable to me. So the reason that I'm asking, and that our producer, Lecrae Mitchell, we're asking these voters here in South Carolina how they feel about these gaffes is because Joe Biden is leading nationally. His support has stayed pretty stable, and especially here in South Carolina, where he is very beloved. And I think when you kind of talk to voters on the ground, they see something a little bit different. They see someone that they know, that they feel like they can connect with. And I think that helps to kind of illustrate, at least at this point in time, why Biden is maintaining that lead in the polls. Also shows a separation of kind of what's going on Twitter and kind of in the media atmosphere and what's going on the ground, which we're always trying to keep a reality check on.
That's why we love it, having you guys there on the ground to give us a real sense of what's going on. Caitlin, I'm curious, you know, Biden has a really good support in the African-American community, something that not all the candidates, Democratic candidates have. Why do you think that is?
That's right, Reena, to note that he has a coalition that's unlike a lot of these other Democratic candidates. And I think that's specifically or especially palpable here in South Carolina. People feel like they know him. He has been here a lot. He has a house in Kiowa Island, so he comes to the state a lot. And, of course, he was Obama's vice president. People know that. He talks a lot about that on the campaign trail, especially here in South Carolina. He talks about Obama picking him. He talks about Obama giving him assignments. And something else that I've picked up on over the course of the South Carolina swing is that he talks about the high African-American population in Delaware, of course, where he served as senator and grew up. So I think this is something that South Carolina, I think we're going to be looking at this state as perhaps a saving grace for Joe Biden. Even if he doesn't do well in Iowa or New Hampshire, he can come to South Carolina and have a real strong base of support, particularly among older African-American voters. And I can say, you know, we've followed Biden on various stops in various states. And to me, he seems kind of like a different candidate here in South Carolina. He feeds off energy of the crowd. They're super engaged with him. They respond to really standard stump speech lines. So he feels like he has a little bit of a different energy here in South Carolina. It feels almost like a homecoming. So I would watch for that as we're kind of assessing these candidates go through these early states. Here, he has a really solid base of support. We'll see if that continues.
All right. So much to follow. Caitlin Huey-Burns down in South Carolina. Thanks so much for joining us, Caitlin.